Ethan Caldwell adjusted his headset, the hum of the Cessna's engine steady beneath him. At 42, he'd flown countless tribute missions, but today felt different. The airspace over Willow Creek was sealed. No explanation, just a curt NOTAM barring all civilian flights. Ethan, a seasoned pilot, ran a small aviation school, teaching kids barely old enough to drive how to soar. He'd planned a memorial flight for his late mentor, Captain Roy Bennett, a Vietnam-era pilot whose stories of courage shaped Ethan's life. Roy's widow, Margaret, had asked for this, a simple flyover to scatter his ashes above the valley he loved. Now, the FAA's blanket ban threatened to ground it. Ethan taxied to the runway's edge, staring at the sky. His student, 19-year-old Lucas Hayes, sat beside him, fidgeting. "Mr. Caldwell, why's the airspace closed? Some VIP in town." Ethan shrugged, his jaw tight. He'd called the tower, nothing but vague assurances about national security. The closure was county-wide, no exceptions. Margaret's call last night echoed in his mind. "Roy would have wanted this, Ethan. You know he trusted you." He couldn't let her down. The radio crackled. Cessna 472, hold position, airspace restricted. Ethan's grip on the yoke tightened. He'd heard rumors of a military exercise, but no jets had screamed overhead, no signs of activity, just silence. Lucas glanced at him, eyes wide. "What do we do?" Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he scanned the horizon, his mind racing. Roy had taught him to question orders that didn't add up. Back in '68, Roy had flown a recon mission under fire, defying a colonel's bad call to save his squad. That grit was why Ethan admired him. He keyed the mic. "Tower, this is Cessna 472, requesting clarification on the closure. This is a memorial flight pre-approved last week." A long pause followed. The controller's voice returned, clipped. "Negative 472, no exceptions, stand down." Ethan's gut churned. Margaret was waiting at the airfield, clutching Roy's urn. He pictured her frail hands, her quiet hope. This wasn't just a flight, it was closure. Lucas shifted. "Maybe we should listen, Mr. Caldwell." Ethan shook his head. "Roy didn't raise me to quit." He checked the instruments, fuel good, weather clear. The closure made no sense, no military chatter, no emergency beacons. Something was off. He'd seen this before, bureaucracy hiding incompetence. Years ago, a local official had tried to shut down his school over a zoning dispute, flexing power for no reason. Ethan had fought that and won. This felt the same. He made a call. "Margaret, they're blocking us. I'm taking her up anyway." Her voice trembled. "Be careful, Ethan." He hung up, heart pounding. "Lucas, you in?" The kid nodded, pale but resolute. Ethan pushed the throttle. The Cessna rolled forward, defying the tower's orders. Whatever sealed the airspace, Ethan would find out and honor Roy's memory, no matter the cost. The Cessna climbed, Willow Creek's patchwork fields shrinking below. Ethan's pulse raced, but his hands were steady. Lucas gripped the armrest, eyes darting between the altimeter and the sky. "Mr. Caldwell, what if they send jets after us?" Ethan forced a grin. "Then we'll have a story to tell." He didn't mention the fines, the license suspension, or worse, prison time. This was about Roy, about keeping a promise. The radio stayed silent, but Ethan knew the tower had clocked them. He leveled off at 5,000 feet, the valley sprawling beneath, Roy's urn secure in the back. Margaret's words replayed. He loved this place, Ethan said. It reminded him of home. Roy had grown up in Willow Creek, a farm kid who joined the Air Force to see the world. His stories weren't just war tales. They were about loyalty, about standing up when it counted. Ethan glanced at the urn, a simple silver cylinder. Roy deserved this, not some grounded ceremony because of red tape. The radio crackled. "Cessna 472, you are in violation of restricted airspace. Return to base immediately." Ethan ignored it, scanning for threats. No jets, no drones, just endless blue. Lucas whispered, "What's the plan?" Ethan adjusted course toward Roy's favorite ridge. "We scatter the ashes, then deal with the fallout." Lucas nodded, his fear easing into resolve. Ethan admired that. The kid was learning what Roy had taught. Some fights were worth picking. Below the airfield was a speck. Margaret would be watching, shielding her eyes against the sun. Ethan imagined her hope, her trust in him. He couldn't fail her, but doubt crept in. What if the closure was legit, a classified op? He shook it off. Roy had defied orders once, flying through a storm to drop supplies to stranded troops. That courage was Ethan's guide now. A new voice cut through the radio, sharp and authoritative. "Cessna 472, this is Colonel Travis Warren, Air Force Command. You are ordered to land. Non-compliance will escalate." Ethan froze. Air Force. This wasn't local bureaucracy. His mind raced. Warren's name sounded familiar. Roy's stories, a call sign, he couldn't place it. Lucas, check the charts. Anything on military zones? Lucas fumbled with the tablet, shaking his head. Nothing active today. Ethan's jaw clenched. He keyed the mic. "Colonel Warren, this is Ethan Caldwell. I'm conducting a memorial flight for Captain Roy Bennett, Vietnam vet. Request permission to complete the tribute." Silence. Then Warren's voice, softer. "Bennett, state your intentions." Ethan explained. Ashes, a low pass over the ridge, no stunts. Another pause. "Stand by 472. Ethan held his breath. Lucas whispered, "Think he knew Roy?" Ethan nodded. "Maybe." Minutes ticked by. The Cessna hummed, fuel gauge steady. Then Warren's voice returned. "Cessna 472, you're cleared for one pass. Make it quick." Ethan exhaled, relief flooding him. He didn't know why Warren relented. Crux was, Roy's tribute was on. He banked toward the ridge, ready to honor his mentor's legacy. The Cessna glided over Willow Creek's ridge, the late afternoon sun casting golden streaks across the valley. Ethan's hands were steady, his focus razor-sharp as he aligned the plane for the tribute pass. Lucas held Roy's urn, his knuckles white around the silver cylinder. "Ready when you are, Mr. Caldwell," he said, voice steady despite the tension. Ethan nodded, checking the altimeter. 3,000 feet, low enough for Margaret to see from the airfield. The radio stayed quiet, but Colonel Warren's clearance echoed in Ethan's mind. Something about the colonel's tone nagged at him, a familiarity he couldn't shake. He glanced at Lucas. Open the window, slow and steady. Lucas nodded, sliding the side window open. A rush of cool air filled the cabin, carrying the scent of pine from below. Ethan pictured Roy, gruff, gray-haired, always with a story about defying odds. This pass was for him, for the man who taught Ethan that flying was about heart, not just skill. "Now, Lucas," Ethan said. The kid tilted the urn, and a stream of ash caught the wind, swirling over the ridge Roy had loved. Ethan's chest tightened, pride, grief, and defiance all at once. Below, the valley was quiet, no military jets in sight. Ethan had expected interceptors, maybe a show of force, but the sky was theirs. He banked gently, giving Margaret a clear view. She'd be standing by the hangar, her scarf fluttering, eyes on the sky. Ethan imagined her smile, faint but real. Lucas closed the window, his face somber. "That was it, right? We did it." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, Roy's home now." The radio crackled. "Cessna 472, this is Colonel Warren. Confirm your status." Ethan keyed the mic. "Tribute complete, sir. Heading back to base." A pause, then Warren's voice, quieter, understood. "Safe landing, Caldwell." The softness in his tone hit Ethan again. He knew that name. Roy had mentioned a Trav once, a young pilot he'd mentored in Nam. Could it be the same guy? Ethan shook it off. He'd ask later. For now, he focused on the descent. As the airfield came into view, Lucas exhaled. "Think we're in trouble," Ethan chuckled. "Probably worth it, though." He pictured the FAA's wrath, fines, hearings, maybe losing his license. But Roy's ashes were scattered and Margaret had her closure. That mattered more. The Cessna touched down smoothly, taxiing to the hangar where Margaret waited. She waved, her face lit with gratitude. Ethan cut the engine, the silence heavy. Margaret approached as they climbed out. "You did it," she said, voice cracking. Ethan hugged her, feeling the weight of the moment. "Roy would have been proud," she added. Ethan nodded, throat tight. But as they walked to the hangar, a black SUV rolled up, dust swirling. A man in uniform stepped out, Colonel Warren, graying but sharp-eyed. Ethan's stomach dropped. This wasn't over yet. Colonel Travis Warren stood by the SUV, his Air Force uniform crisp despite the dust. Ethan's heart sank as he met the man's gaze, steady, unreadable but not hostile. Margaret clutched Ethan's arm, her eyes darting between them. Lucas hung back, shifting nervously. "Mr. Caldwell," Warren said, voice calm but firm, "we need to talk." Ethan nodded, bracing for the consequences. He'd broken federal orders, flown in restricted airspace. The tribute was worth it, but now he'd pay. Warren gestured toward the hangar. Inside, Ethan led the way, Margaret and Lucas trailing. The hangar smelled of oil and metal, Roy's old flight jacket still hanging on a hook. Warren's boots echoed on the concrete. "You've got guts, Caldwell," he said, stopping by a workbench. "Stupid but gutsy." Ethan squared his shoulders. It was for Roy Bennett. He deserved it. Warren's eyes flickered, a shadow of something personal crossing his face. "I know who Roy was." Ethan's suspicion grew. "You knew him," Warren nodded, his expression softening. "Flew with him in '68. He saved my hide when I botched a landing in Da Nang. Never let me forget it either." He chuckled, but it faded fast. "When I heard your call sign and Roy's name, I couldn't ground you, not for this." Ethan exhaled, relief mixing with surprise. Warren wasn't just a faceless officer, he was part of Roy's story. Margaret stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You let Ethan fly for Roy?" Warren met her gaze. "Ma'am, I cleared the airspace myself. Roy would have haunted me otherwise." She smiled, tears welling. Ethan's mind raced. Warren had bent rules too, risking his own career, but something still didn't add up. "Why was the airspace closed, Colonel?" Ethan asked. Warren's jaw tightened. "Classified exercise, that's all you get." Lucas, quiet until now, spoke up. "So we're not in trouble?" Warren raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you're in trouble. FAA's already sniffing around, but I'll handle what I can." Ethan nodded, grateful but wary. Warren wasn't the enemy, but bureaucracy was. He'd seen it before, petty officials wielding power like a club. Years ago, a zoning board had nearly killed his school over a typo in a permit. He fought then, and he'd fight now. Warren handed Ethan a card. "Call me if the FAA gets heavy. Roy's name still carries weight." Ethan pocketed it, stunned. Margaret hugged Warren, whispering thanks. As the colonel left, Ethan felt the weight of what they'd done. The tribute was complete, but the fallout loomed. He looked at Lucas, who grinned. "Worth it, right?" Ethan laughed. "Yeah, kid, worth it." But as he watched Warren's SUV disappear, he knew the real battle against the system was just beginning. Ethan sat in his office, the airfield quiet outside. Margaret had gone home, clutching Roy's empty urn, her gratitude lingering like a warm ache in Ethan's chest. Lucas was sweeping the hangar, still buzzing from the flight. The colonel's card lay on Ethan's desk, a lifeline he might need soon. The FAA wouldn't let this slide. Defying a NOTAM was a serious offense. Ethan had seen pilots lose licenses for less, but Roy's ashes were scattered, and that grounded him. The phone rang. It was Jenna Harper, a friend at the local FBO. "Ethan, you're in deep," she said, voice low. "FAA's got a report on you. Some suit named Greg Larson's pushing for a full investigation." Ethan's stomach twisted. Larson. He'd heard the name, a regional FAA official with a reputation for cracking down on small operators. 2 years ago, Larson had grounded a crop-dusting outfit over minor paperwork errors, costing them their season. Ethan wasn't surprised. Power-hungry types like Larson thrived on control. "Thanks, Jenna," Ethan said, hanging up. He leaned back, staring at Roy's old flight log on the shelf. Roy had faced worse court-martials, brass with grudges, but he'd always found a way through. Ethan needed that now. He grabbed Warren's card and dialed. The colonel answered on the second ring. Caldwell, trouble already, Ethan explained Larson's investigation. Warren sighed. Larson's a pit bull. I'll make calls, but you need a plan. Ethan spent the evening digging into FAA regulations, his eyes burning from the fine print. Lucas poked his head in. You okay, Mr. Caldwell? Ethan nodded, forcing a smile, just prepping for a fight. Lucas hesitated, then sat. I looked up Larson. Guy's got a vendetta against small schools like ours. Shut down 3 in Oregon last year. Ethan's jaw clenched. This wasn't just about the flight, it was personal for Larson. By morning, Ethan had a strategy. He'd file a formal appeal citing the memorial's approval before the NOTAM and Warren's clearance. He called Margaret, updating her. I'm so sorry, Ethan, she said. This is because of Roy. He shook his head, though she couldn't see. No, it's because of me, and I'd do it again. Her voice softened. Roy always said you were stubborn. Jenna called again. Larson's coming tomorrow, wants to inspect the school. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. An inspection was a power play. Larson could nitpick anything to justify sanctions. Ethan rallied Lucas and the other instructors, cleaning logbooks and checking every plane. They worked late, the hangar alive with purpose. Lucas, wiping down a prop, said, We're not letting him win, right? Ethan clapped his shoulder. Not a chance. As night fell, Ethan stood outside, staring at the stars. Roy's voice echoed in his mind. Pick your battles, but fight 'em hard. Larson was coming, but Ethan was ready. He'd honor Roy's legacy, not just in the sky, but on the ground, too. Greg Larson arrived at the airfield just after dawn, his gray suit out of place among the oil-stained coveralls and propeller hum. Ethan watched him step out of a government-issued sedan, clipboard in hand, his thin lips set in a line. At 50, Larson had a reputation for precision and no patience for rule breakers. Ethan, still wired from a sleepless night, met him at the hangar door. Lucas and the other instructors hovered nearby, pretending to work but watching closely. Margaret had insisted on being there, sitting quietly in a folding chair, her presence a reminder of why Ethan was fighting. Mr. Caldwell, Larson began, voice clipped. You violated a NOTAM, serious breach. I'm here to review your operations. Ethan nodded, keeping his tone even. Understood. Our logs and aircraft are ready for inspection. Larson's eyes narrowed as if he'd expected resistance. He walked through the hangar, scrutinizing everything, fuel logs, maintenance records, even the fire extinguishers. Ethan followed, answering questions with calm precision, though his pulse raced. Larson was looking for a reason to bury him. In the office, Larson flipped through Ethan's flight logs. Your memorial flight wasn't authorized, he said, not looking up. Ethan leaned forward. It was approved before the NOTAM. I have the paperwork. He slid a folder across the desk, emails, permits, all dated before the airspace closure. Larson's jaw twitched, but he kept writing. You ignored a direct order from the tower. Ethan met his gaze. I received clearance from Colonel Travis Warren, Air Force Command. Larson paused, pen hovering. Warren, he set the clipboard down, eyes sharp. You're saying a colonel overrode a federal restriction? Ethan nodded. Call him, he'll confirm. Larson's expression hardened, but he didn't argue. Ethan sensed a crack. Larson hadn't expected a military connection. Roy's name and Warren's carried weight. Ethan pressed the advantage. This was a tribute for Captain Roy Bennett, Vietnam vet. His widow's here if you need to verify. Margaret stood, her voice soft but firm. My husband served this country. Ethan honored his wish. Larson glanced at her, his face unreadable. He resumed his inspection, but the air had shifted. Ethan caught Lucas's eye. The kid gave a subtle thumbs up. By noon, Larson was done, his notes meticulous but less aggressive. I'll file my report, he said, heading to his car. Expect a hearing. As Larson drove off, Ethan exhaled. Margaret touched his arm. You're just like Roy, stubborn but good. Ethan smiled, but his mind was on the hearing. Larson's report could cripple the school. He called Warren, who answered gruffly. Larson's a problem, but I've got contacts. Hold tight. Ethan hung up, staring at the Cessna. The fight wasn't over, but Roy's ashes were scattered and the school was still standing. For now, that was enough. He'd face the next battle when it came. Ethan spent the next week preparing for the FAA hearing, his small office cluttered with legal pads and coffee mugs. Lucas helped, digging through regulations while the other instructors kept the school running. Margaret stopped by daily, bringing sandwiches and quiet encouragement. Roy would have loved this fight, she said once, her smile bittersweet. Ethan nodded, but the weight of Larson's report loomed. The FAA could suspend his license, fine him thousands, or shut down the school entirely. He'd built this place from nothing. Every plane, every student, a testament to Roy's lessons. Jenna called with a tip. Larson's pushing hard, Ethan. Word is he's got a grudge against small operators, thinks they're reckless. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd heard stories Larson had targeted a flight school in Idaho, citing minor violations until they went bankrupt. It wasn't about safety, it was control. Ethan wasn't just fighting for himself, but for his students, for Lucas, for the community that relied on the school. He dialed Colonel Warren again. Any progress? He asked. Warren's voice was grim. I've got a general leaning on the FAA, but Larson's got pull. Prep for a tough hearing. The hearing was set in a sterile FAA office in Boise 2 weeks later. Ethan drove up, Lucas in the passenger seat, both in borrowed suits. Margaret insisted on coming, sitting in the back with a photo of Roy in her purse. The room was cold, with Larson at a table alongside 2 FAA officials, their faces blank. Ethan presented his case, Roy's tribute, the pre-approved flight, Warren's clearance. Larson countered, voice sharp, listing violations. Unauthorized flight, endangering airspace, reckless conduct. Ethan kept calm, though his hands shook under the table. Margaret spoke, her voice steady. My husband flew for this country. Ethan gave him the send-off he wanted. The officials exchanged glances, one scribbling notes. Larson's face stayed hard, but Ethan caught a flicker of doubt. He leaned forward. "Colonel Warren cleared me mid-flight. You've got his statement." He slid a faxed letter from Warren across the table, detailing Roy's service and Ethan's intent. The room went quiet. The lead official, a woman named Diane Foster, adjourned for deliberation. Ethan waited in the hall, Lucas packing, Margaret praying softly. Hours later, Foster returned. "Mr. Caldwell, your flight was improper, but given the circumstances and Colonel Warren's intervention, we're issuing a fine, $2000. Your license is intact and the school stays open." Ethan exhaled, relief crashing through him. Larson's eyes burned, but he said nothing. Outside, Margaret hugged him. "Roy's smiling, Ethan." Lucas grinned. "We won, right?" Ethan nodded, but the fine stung. He'd have to scrape it together. As they drove back, he thought of Roy's stories of fighting for what mattered. The school was safe, the tribute done. Larson hadn't won. Ethan glanced at the sky, feeling Roy's presence, and knew he'd keep fighting, no matter what came next. The $2,000 fine hit Ethan harder than he'd let on. The school's budget was tight. Maintenance, fuel, and insurance ate up most of the revenue. He sat in his office, staring at the ledger, numbers blurring. Lucas knocked, holding a stack of envelopes. "Fundraiser mail came in," he said, dropping them on the desk. The community had rallied after news of the hearing spread. Margaret had posted about Roy's tribute on a local forum, and donations trickled in, $20 here, $50 there. Ethan's throat tightened. Willow Creek wasn't big, but it was loyal. He called a meeting with the instructors, 5 of them, all part-timers who'd stuck by him. "We're not out of the woods," he said, laying out the fine and Larson's lingering threat. "He's got it out for us." Tara, a former crop duster, crossed her arms. "Larson's a bully. I say we keep flying, show him we're not scared." The others nodded. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Roy had built this spirit, defiant, steady, a family in the sky. Jenna dropped by with news. "Larson's sniffing around other schools now, but he's not done with you. Word is he's pushing for a follow-up audit." Ethan cursed under his breath. An audit could uncover anything, a missed log entry, a worn tire, and Larson would use it to justify harsher penalties. Ethan needed allies. He called Warren again. The colonel was blunt. "Larson's got friends in high places, but so do I. I'm working on it. Keep your nose clean." Ethan threw himself into compliance, double-checking every record, every bolt. Lucas took charge of the students, keeping lessons on track. One evening, Margaret brought a guest, Tom Reynolds, a retired FAA inspector who'd known Roy. "Heard about your stunt," Tom said, grinning. "Roy would have done the same." He offered to review the school's logs, pointing out weak spots Larson might target. Ethan took every suggestion, grateful for the edge. By week's end, $1,200 in donations had come in, easing the fine's burden. Ethan wrote thank you notes, his hand cramping. Lucas watched, curious. "Why not just pay and move on?" Ethan shook his head. "It's not about the money. It's about showing Larson he can't break us. Lucas nodded, understanding dawning. Ethan saw Roy in him, the same spark, the same refusal to back down. A new email arrived from Diane Foster, the FAA official from the hearing. Audit scheduled next month. Prepare thoroughly. Ethan's stomach dropped. Larson was behind this, he was sure. He called a community meeting at the airfield explaining the situation. Over 50 people showed up, students, parents, locals. Margaret spoke, her voice carrying Roy's fire. This school's a legacy. We won't let it fall. Cheers erupted. Ethan felt the weight of their trust. Larson was coming, but Willow Creek was ready. Ethan would fight, not just for Roy, but for everyone who believed in him. The audit loomed like a storm cloud over Willow Creek. Ethan woke each morning with a knot in his chest, the airfield his battleground. He and the instructors worked tirelessly, scrubbing every record, inspecting every aircraft. Lucas took on extra duties, organizing student logs with a focus Ethan hadn't seen before. "This place is home," Lucas said one night, wiping grease from his hands. "Larson's not taking it." Ethan clapped his shoulder, proud but weary. The kid was growing into Roy's mold. Margaret rallied the community, her quiet strength a force. She organized a fundraiser at the local diner, packing it with locals who shared stories of Roy's flights, how he'd buzzed the valley to cheer kids at summer camp, how he'd taught half the town to fly. They raised $800 more, enough to cover the fine and bolster the school's legal fund. Ethan watched Margaret work the room, her gray hair catching the light, and felt Roy's presence in her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for him, she was fighting for what Roy stood for. Tom Reynolds, the retired FAA inspector, became a regular at the airfield. His sharp eyes caught details Ethan missed: a misdated maintenance log, a vague fuel entry. "Larson's looking for blood," Tom warned. "He'll twist anything to make you look reckless." Ethan nodded, grateful but tense. He'd heard Larson was auditing another school in Montana, grounding them over a single cracked windshield. The man was relentless, a bureaucrat with a vendetta. Colonel Warren called with an update. "I've got a friend in the FAA's regional office. He's flagging Larson's pattern, targeting small schools, ignoring bigger violations at corporate outfits. Keep your records tight and we might catch him overreaching." Ethan thanked him, hope flickering. Warren's connection to Roy gave him leverage, but Larson's influence was deep. Ethan needed to be flawless. The night before the audit, Ethan walked the hangar alone, the planes silent under the fluorescent lights. Roy's jacket hung on its hook, a reminder of why he'd risked everything. He thought of the tribute flight, the ashes swirling over the ridge. It had been worth it, but the cost was still unfolding. He touched the jacket, grounding himself. "We're not done, Roy," he whispered. The audit day arrived, Larson back with his clipboard and cold stare. He moved through the hangar like a predator, questioning every detail. Ethan stayed calm, answering with precision, Tom's advice in his mind. Lucas watched from the sidelines, his jaw tight. Margaret sat outside greeting locals who'd shown up to support. Larson spent hours dissecting logs, measuring tire treads, even checking the office's fire alarms. By dusk, he left without a word, his face unreadable. Ethan collapsed into a chair, exhausted but intact. Lucas grinned. "We survived, right?" Ethan nodded, but his gut told him Larson wasn't finished. The fight was far from over, but Willow Creek's spirit, Roy's spirit, was stronger. Ethan would keep going for the school, for the community, for Roy. Greg Larson's audit report landed in Ethan's inbox a week later, a 20-page document dense with jargon. It listed 17 minor violations, things like an outdated emergency contact list and a fuel log with a smudged date. Nothing major, but enough to justify a second fine, $1,500 and a warning. Further noncompliance may result in license suspension. Ethan's blood boiled. Larson was playing dirty, stacking small infractions to paint the school as careless. He called Tom Reynolds, who skimmed the report. "He's building a case," Tom said. "Next audit he'll go for the kill." Ethan gathered the instructors and Lucas in the hangar. "Larson, not stopping," he said, voice steady despite the anger. "We fix every violation, then we push back." Tara, the crop duster, suggested a lawyer. "My cousin's a legal shark, specializes in aviation." Ethan nodded, jotting down the name Claire Donovan. He couldn't afford much, but the community's donations gave him room to fight. Margaret, listening quietly, added, "I'll talk to the town council. They've got sway with state officials." Claire met Ethan the next day, her sharp eyes scanning Larson's report. "He's overreaching," she said. "The violations are petty, but he's framing them to escalate. We can appeal, maybe file a complaint for targeted harassment." Ethan liked her fire. She reminded him of Roy, no nonsense but loyal. She suggested a public campaign, too. "Get Willow Creek behind you. Larson hates bad press." Ethan agreed, picturing the diner packed with supporters. Margaret worked fast, organizing a town hall. Over 100 people showed up, filling the community center with murmurs of outrage. Ethan spoke, laying out Larson's tactics and the school's importance, jobs, training, Roy's legacy. A farmer named Hank stood, voice booming. "This airfield's ours. Larson's an outsider picking a fight." Cheers erupted. By the end, they'd raised $3,000 more and drafted a petition to the FAA demanding oversight of Larson's audits. Colonel Warren called with news. "My contact says Larson's on thin ice. Too many complaints from other schools. Keep the pressure on." Ethan shared this with Claire, who filed the appeal, citing Warren's testimony and the community's support. She also dug into Larson's history, uncovering a pattern. 6 schools targeted in 2 years, all small, all struggling after his audits. "He's got a bias," Claire said. "We can use that." Lucas, meanwhile, started a social media campaign, posting about Roy's tribute and the school's fight. Hashtags like Save Willow Creek Airfield spread, drawing attention beyond the valley. Ethan watched, amazed, as strangers donated, shared, and wrote letters to the FAA. Larson's name started trending locally, not in a good way. Ethan felt Roy's spirit in the momentum: defiance, community, heart. By month's end, Claire got word. The FAA was reviewing Larson's conduct. The second fine was on hold pending appeal. Ethan stood in the hangar watching Lucas teach a student to pre-flight a Cessna. Margaret joined him, smiling. Roy would have loved this. Ethan nodded. Larson wasn't done, but neither were they. The sky was still theirs. The FAA's review of Greg Larson's conduct sent ripples through Willow Creek. Ethan felt a cautious hope, but he knew better than to relax. Larson was a dog with a bone, and men like him didn't back off easily. Claire Donovan, Ethan's lawyer, was relentless, compiling a dossier on Larson's audits. 7 small flight schools hit with crippling fines or closures in 3 years. She'd found a pattern of selective enforcement, ignoring bigger operators while hammering independents like Ethan. "It's personal for him," Claire said over coffee at the diner. "He's got a chip on his shoulder about cowboy pilots." Ethan leaned back, rubbing his eyes. He hadn't slept well in weeks, the stress of the fines and audits gnawing at him. The school was still running, thanks to the community's donations and Lucas's social media push. Posts about Roy's tribute had gone viral locally, with over 2,000 shares. A news outlet in Boise picked up the story, framing it as small town versus FAA bureaucrat. Ethan hated the spotlight but couldn't deny its power. Larson's name was now tied to public scrutiny, and that gave them leverage. Margaret organized another fundraiser, this time a fly-in at the airfield. Pilots from across the state showed up, buzzing the valley in Cessnas, Pipers, and a vintage Stearman. The event raised $5,000, enough to cover legal fees and repairs. Lucas manned a booth, handing out stickers with it. Ethan watched him, proud. The kid had grown up fast, channeling Roy's grit. Margaret, working the crowd, told stories of Roy's flights, her voice steady but emotional. "He'd be here cheering you all on," she said, and the crowd clapped. Colonel Warren called with an update. FAA's internal review is moving. Larson's been pulled from 2 audits in Oregon. Keep the pressure on, but don't get cocky. Ethan thanked him, sensing Warren's own history with Roy fueling his help. Ethan dug into Roy's old logs, finding a faded photo of Roy and a young pilot, Travis Warren, grinning in a flight suit. The connection ran deep, and Ethan felt its weight. Claire filed a formal complaint with the FAA, backed by the petition and media coverage. She also reached out to the other targeted schools, building a coalition. "If we show a pattern, they can't ignore it," she said. Ethan agreed, but worry lingered. Larson could still escalate, maybe push for a criminal charge over the NOTAM violation. Ethan confided in Tara, who shrugged. "Let him try. We've got the town, the media, and a colonel. He's outmatched." That night, Ethan walked the airfield, the stars bright above. He thought of Roy's stories. missions flown under pressure, choices made for the greater good. The school was more than a business, it was a legacy. Larson's next move was coming, but Ethan was ready. Willow Creek had his back and Roy's spirit was in the fight. He'd protect the airfield no matter what it took. The FAA's internal review dragged on, leaving Ethan in limbo. He kept the school running, teaching classes and signing off on student solos, but the threat of Larson's next move hung heavy. Claire Donovan worked tirelessly, coordinating with other flight schools hit by Larson's audits. They formed a loose alliance, sharing stories of nitpicky violations and sudden inspections. A school in Montana had closed after Larson flagged a paperwork error as willful negligence. Ethan's fine seemed mild by comparison, but he knew Larson wasn't done. Lucas's social media campaign grew, with Save Willow Creek Airfield trending beyond Idaho. A national aviation blog picked up the story, calling Larson the FAA's overzealous enforcer. Comments flooded in, some from pilots who'd faced similar scrutiny. Ethan read them late at night, amazed at the support but uneasy with the attention. He just wanted to fly, to teach, to honor Roy. Margaret, ever practical, kept the community engaged, organizing a letter-writing campaign to the FAA. Over 300 letters poured in, each one a plea to save the school. Colonel Warren called with a breakthrough. Larson, been suspended pending review. My contact says your coalition's making noise. Good work. Ethan exhaled, but Warren's tone stayed serious. He's got allies, though. Stay sharp. Ethan thanked him, feeling the tide turning but not trusting it. Larson's suspension was a win, but bureaucracy was unpredictable. He'd seen it before. A zoning fight years ago had seemed one until a new official revived it. Claire pushed for a meeting with Diane Foster, the FAA official from the hearing. They met in Boise, Ethan in his best shirt, Claire with a binder of evidence. Diane listened as Claire laid out Larson's pattern targeting small schools, ignoring corporate operators, even fudging reports. Ethan added, "This isn't about safety, it's personal." Diane's face stayed neutral, but she promised to escalate the complaint. As they left, Claire grinned. "She's on our side quietly." Back at the airfield, the mood was lighter. Lucas taught a new student, a shy 16-year-old named Mia, how to read a sectional chart. Tara overhauled a Cessna's engine, humming. Margaret brought cookies, her smile brighter, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Larson would strike back. He checked the school's logs daily, paranoid about missing something. Tom Reynolds stopped by, offering more tips. "Larson's type doesn't quit," he warned. "He'll wait for you to slip." A week later, a new email arrived from the FAA. Larson's suspension was extended and Ethan's second fine was dropped. Cheers erupted in the hangar when he shared the news. Lucas high-fived Mia, who'd become a regular. Margaret hugged Ethan, whispering, "Roy's proud." Ethan nodded, but his eyes were on the sky. The victory felt fragile. Larson was down, not out, and Ethan knew men like him held grudges. The school was safe for now, But the fight had taught Ethan one thing. Roy's legacy wasn't just in the air. It was in the resilience of Willow Creek. Larson's suspension was the talk of Willow Creek, the diner buzzing with gossip. Ethan felt the community's pride, but he kept his guard up. Men like Larson didn't vanish quietly. He focused on the school, teaching a new batch of students while Lucas took on more responsibility, running pre-flight checks like a pro. Margaret's fundraisers had left the school financially stable, a rare feeling. She'd even started a scholarship in Roy's name, funding lessons for kids who couldn't afford them. Ethan saw Roy in every takeoff, every smooth landing. Claire Donovan called with news. FAA's launching a formal investigation into Larson. Our coalition's evidence was key: doctored reports, biased audits. He's in hot water. Ethan exhaled, the knot in his chest loosening. But Claire warned, he's still got friends. If he's cleared, he'll come for you harder. Ethan nodded, used to the long game. He fought off a shady developer years ago who tried to buy the airfield cheap. Persistence was his weapon. The aviation blog ran a follow-up detailing Larson's suspension and Willow Creek's fight. Comments poured in: pilots, instructors, even a retired FAA official praising Ethan's stand. Lucas, now a social media whiz, posted a photo of the airfield at sunset, captioned, "Still flying thanks to you." It got 5,000 likes. Ethan shook his head, bemused. "You're making me famous, kid." Lucas grinned. Roy would have loved it. Colonel Warren visited the airfield, his first time since the tribute. He walked the hangar, eyes lingering on Roy's jacket. "You did him proud, Caldwell," he said, voice gruff. Ethan offered a beer and they sat outside watching planes take off. Warren shared a story, Roy saving his life in '68, talking him through a botched landing under fire. "He never followed bad orders," Warren said. "You're the same." Ethan felt the weight of that, honored but humbled. A new threat emerged. A rumor Larson was consulting with a private firm, possibly feeding them dirt on small schools. Ethan asked Claire to dig. She found the firm, a corporate aviation group, had lobbied for laxer rules for big operators while small schools got crushed. "Larson's their attack dog," she said. Ethan wasn't surprised. Power protected power. He rallied the coalition, sharing the intel. They agreed to go public, exposing the firm's ties to Larson. The school buzzed with energy. Mia soloed her first flight, landing with a grin Ethan recognized, pure joy, Roy's kind. Margaret watched, tears in her eyes. "This is what Roy wanted," she said. Ethan nodded, but his mind was on Larson. The investigation might bury him, but Ethan knew better than to trust the system fully. He'd keep fighting for the school, for the students, for Roy's legacy. The airfield was more than land and planes. It was a promise kept, a community united. As the sun set, Ethan looked at the sky, feeling Roy's presence. They won a battle, but the war wasn't over. The FAA investigation into Greg Larson gained traction, fueled by the coalition's evidence and media pressure. Ethan got updates from Claire Donovan, who'd become a pit bull herself, digging into Larson's emails and audit trails. "He's sloppy," she said over the phone. "Left a paper trail of favoritism toward corporate operators. We've got him." Ethan allowed himself a small smile, but caution lingered. He'd learned from Roy, never trust a win until it's final. Willow Creek's airfield hummed with life. Lucas trained Mia, who was now logging hours toward her private pilot's license. The Roy Bennett Scholarship funded 2 more students, both local teens whose parents worked at the diner. Margaret beamed at their progress, her quiet strength the school's backbone. She started a weekly coffee meetup for pilots' families, turning the hangar into a community hub. Ethan watched, amazed at how Roy's memory wove through it all. The aviation blog ran another piece, this time nomming the corporate firm tied to Larson, SkyCorp Aviation. The article detailed how SkyCorp pushed for deregulation while small schools faced Larson's wrath. Comments exploded, with pilots nationwide sharing stories of unfair audits. Lucas's social media posts amplified it, #StopSkyCorp trending. Ethan shook his head, still uneasy with the attention but grateful for the support. "You're a menace, kid," he told Lucas, who laughed. "Just keeping Roy's fight alive." Colonel Warren sent a cryptic text, "Check FAA's site tomorrow." Ethan did, finding a press release. Larson was officially terminated, cited for misconduct and bias in enforcement. The coalition cheered over a group call, Claire's voice triumphant. "We did it, Ethan, he's gone." But she warned, SkyCorp's still out there. They'll find another Larson. Ethan nodded, knowing the game. Power didn't vanish, it regrouped. The airfield hosted a celebration fly-in, planes filling the sky. Margaret scattered the last of Roy's ashes from the ground, a symbolic close. Ethan flew a low pass, tipping the Cessna's wings. Lucas rode along, grinning. "Think Roy's watching," Ethan nodded. "He's probably laughing." The community gathered below, cheering. Hank, the farmer, raised a beer. "To Roy and to beating the suits," laughter echoed. Ethan met with Claire to plan next steps. SkyCorp was quiet, but Ethan suspected they'd push back eventually. He proposed a watchdog group with the coalition, monitoring FAA fairness. Claire loved it. "You're building Roy's legacy," she said. Ethan shrugged, humble but determined. The school was safe, the fine paid, the students soaring. Mia landed her solo flight, her smile bright as she climbed out. Margaret hugged her, whispering, "Roy would have loved you." As summer faded, Ethan stood by the runway watching a student take off. The fight with Larson had changed him, taught him Willow Creek's strength, Roy's enduring fire. SkyCorp loomed, but Ethan was ready. He'd protect the airfield, the students, the promise he'd made. Roy's jacket hung in the hangar, a quiet reminder. The sky was clear, and Ethan knew this was just the beginning. Willow Creek's airfield settled into a new rhythm after Larson's termination. Ethan felt the weight lift, but he stayed vigilant. SkyCorp Aviation, the corporate giant tied to Larson, hadn't made a move, but Claire Donovan warned they were too quiet. "They're licking their wounds," she said during a strategy call with the coalition. Big firms like that don't quit. Ethan agreed, his mind on Roy's old saying, "Trouble doesn't end, it changes clothes." He'd keep the school ready. Lucas had grown into a leader, teaching ground school with a confidence that made Ethan proud. Mia, now a star student, logged her first cross-country flight, landing with a grin that lit up the hangar. The Roy Bennett Scholarship was funding 4 kids now, and Margaret's coffee meetups had turned the airfield into a community anchor. She'd even started a small museum corner in the hangar, displaying Roy's flight logs, photos, and his old jacket. Visitors left notes, thanking Ethan for the tribute flight. The coalition's watchdog group took shape, with Ethan and Claire leading. They recruited pilots and instructors from the 6 schools Larson had targeted, creating a network to monitor FAA enforcement. A retired pilot from Montana, Ellen Carter, joined, bringing decades of regulatory know-how. Larson wasn't the problem, she said at their first virtual meeting. The system lets guys like him thrive. We fix that. Ethan nodded, seeing Roy's defiance in her eyes. A new challenge emerged. SkyCorp applied for a federal grant to expand their training program, claiming it would standardize aviation education. Ethan smelled a takeover bid, big operators squeezing out small schools like his. Claire dug into the grant's fine print, finding loopholes that favored corporate applicants. "They're using Larson's playbook," she said. "Control the rules, kill the competition." Ethan rallied the coalition, drafting a public letter to the FAA, signed by 200 pilots, demanding fair grant access. The letter hit aviation blogs, sparking debate. Lucas posted it online and Fair Sky took off, with thousands sharing stories of corporate overreach. A local reporter interviewed Ethan, framing Willow Creek as the underdog against SkyCorp's millions. Ethan kept it simple. "We're not just a school, we're a community. Roy taught us that." The story spread and donations poured in, enough to fund new equipment. Colonel Warren visited again, this time with a gift: Roy's old flight wings pinned to a faded Air Force cap. "Found these in storage," he said, handing them to Ethan. "They belong here." Ethan placed them in the museum corner, Margaret tearing up beside him. As Warren left, he warned, "SkyCorp's got deep pockets. Watch your back." Ethan stood by the runway at dusk, watching Mia practice touch-and-goes. The fight wasn't over. SkyCorp was a bigger beast than Larson. But Willow Creek was tougher, forged by Roy's legacy and the town's heart. Ethan gripped the flight wings, feeling their weight. He'd keep flying, keep fighting for Roy, for the students, for the sky they all shared. The fight against SkyCorp Aviation became Ethan's new focus. Their grant application was a direct threat to small schools like his, dressed up as progress. Claire Donovan's research uncovered SkyCorp's plan: standardized training under their umbrella, forcing independents to either join their network or close. Ethan saw it for what it was: a power grab, squeezing out the little guys. Roy had hated corporate types who put profit over passion, and Ethan wasn't about to let them win. The coalition's watchdog group met weekly, now with 12 schools involved. Ellen Carter, the retired pilot, took charge of regulatory research, finding FAA loopholes SkyCorp exploited. "They're lobbying hard," she said during a call. "Got friends in D.C. pushing their grant." Ethan suggested a counter-campaign, pitching fair competition to local lawmakers. Claire drafted letters to Idaho's congressional reps, signed by the coalition and Willow Creek's town council. Margaret got the diner to host a letter-writing night, packing it with locals. Lucas's social media push kept the pressure on. He posted videos of students like Mia, showing the heart of small schools, kids learning to fly, chasing dreams SkyCorp couldn't replicate. The Fair Sky hashtag trended nationally, catching the eye of a DC-based aviation advocacy group. They reached out, offering legal support. Ethan, wary of outsiders, vetted them with Claire. "They're legit," she said, "and they hate SkyCorp's monopolistic crap as much as we do." The FAA responded to the coalition's letter, scheduling a public hearing on the grant. Ethan prepared to testify, practicing with Claire to keep his cool. "Don't mention Larson," she warned. "Focus on community, on Roy's legacy." Ethan nodded, but his gut churned. SkyCorp sent a slick lawyer to the hearing, a guy named Paul Vance, who spoke of modernizing aviation and safety standards. Ethan countered, voice steady, describing Willow Creek's role: jobs, scholarships, kids like Mia soaring. The room, packed with pilots and locals, cheered. Margaret spoke next, her voice soft but piercing. "My husband, Roy Bennett, flew for this country. This school carries his heart. Don't let corporations take that away." The FAA panel, led by Diane Foster, listened intently. Vance's smile faltered. Back home, Ethan got a call from Colonel Warren. "Good job at the hearing. My contact says the panel leaning your way." Ethan exhaled, but Warren added, "SkyCorp's not done. They'll pivot." Sure enough, SkyCorp launched a PR campaign, touting their commitment to rural aviation. Ethan saw through it, empty promises to mask their greed. He rallied the coalition, planning a fly-in protest at SkyCorp's nearest facility. Dozens of planes would buzz their runway, peaceful but loud. Lucas grinned, designing Fair Sky banners for the planes. Mia, now a confident flyer, volunteered to join. Margaret sewed a banner with Roy's name. As the fly-in neared, Ethan stood in the hangar, Roy's flight wings in hand. SkyCorp was bigger than Larson, but Willow Creek was stronger. Roy's legacy, defiance, heart, community would carry them. The sky was theirs, and Ethan would fight to keep it that way. The fly-in protest took shape under a crisp autumn sky, with 27 planes from the coalition lining Willow Creek's runway. Ethan coordinated with pilots from Montana, Oregon, and Idaho, each bringing their own story of SkyCorp's overreach. Lucas and Mia painted Fair Sky banners, while Margaret and the town council rallied locals to watch from the ground. The plan was simple: a peaceful formation flight over SkyCorp's training facility in Boise, a show of unity for small schools. Ethan knew it was bold. Any misstep could give SkyCorp or the FAA ammunition, but Roy's memory demanded courage. Claire Donovan prepped the legal side, ensuring the flight complied with regulations. No stunts, she warned. Stay above 1,000 feet, no low passes. Ethan nodded, though part of him wanted to buzz SkyCorp's tower just to see their faces. Colonel Warren sent a text. Got eyes on the FAA. They're watching, so keep it clean. Ethan appreciated the backup. Warren's connection to Roy kept him invested, a quiet ally in a messy fight. The morning of the fly-in, the airfield buzzed with energy. Pilots swapped stories of SkyCorp's tactics, poaching instructors, undercutting prices, lobbying for rules that favored their fleet. Mia, now 17 and logging hours fast, helped Ethan pre-flight the Cessna. "This is for Roy, right?" she asked, eyes bright. Ethan nodded. "And for you, for every kid who wants to fly." She smiled, climbing into a Piper with Tara. Lucas rode with Ethan, camera ready to document the protest. The formation took off at dawn, engines roaring as they climbed. Ethan led the Cessna steady, 26 planes trailing in a V-shape. Below, Willow Creek cheered, Margaret waving a banner with Roy's name. The flight to Boise was smooth, the Idaho hills rolling beneath. As they neared SkyCorp's facility, Ethan keyed the radio. "Coalition flight, maintain altitude, keep it tight." The pilots acknowledged, their voices steady. Lucas filmed, narrating for social media. "This is for small schools, for fairness, for Roy Bennett." SkyCorp's facility came into view, sleek hangars, a corporate jet parked prominently. The formation circled, banners visible. On the ground, SkyCorp staff watched, some filming, others stone-faced. Ethan spotted Paul Vance, their lawyer, arms crossed. No FAA response came, no NOTAMs, no interceptors. The message was clear. The coalition wasn't backing down. After 3 passes, Ethan led the group back, landing to cheers at Willow Creek. The protest made waves. Lucas's video hit 10,000 views in hours, with Fair Sky trending again. The aviation advocacy group in D.C. amplified it, pressuring the FAA to rethink SkyCorp's grant. Claire got word the panel was split. Diane Foster pushed for fairness, but SkyCorp's lobbying was fierce. Ethan stood in the hangar that night, Roy's flight wings in hand. The fight was tilting their way, but SkyCorp wouldn't quit. Neither would he. Willow Creek, Roy's spirit, the coalition. They'd keep the sky free, no matter the cost. The fly-in protest shifted the tide, but Ethan knew SkyCorp wouldn't fold easily. Their grant application was still pending, and Claire Donovan's contacts hinted at heavy lobbying in D.C. "They're throwing money at it," she told Ethan over coffee. Hearing ex-FAA officials to sway the panel, Ethan's jaw tightened. Roy had despised corporate games, once calling them suits with no soul. Ethan felt that now, fighting a giant that saw his school as a speck to crush. The coalition grew, now 15 schools strong, with Ellen Carter leading outreach to more pilots. They shared data on SkyCorp's tactics, offering low-cost training to lure students, then hiking fees once small schools closed. Ethan saw it as a slow strangulation, choking out places like Willow Creek. He worked with Claire to draft a second letter to the FAA, this time with 500 signatures, including local mayors and a state senator. Margaret got the diner to host another event, collecting 200 more. Lucas's social media campaign kept the pressure on. He posted a video of Mia's first solo, captioned, "This is what SkyCorp wants to kill kids chasing dreams." It hit 20,000 views with comments from pilots nationwide pledging support. A retired Air Force general tweeted, "Small schools made me. Fair sky." Ethan, still uneasy with the spotlight, thanked Lucas quietly. "You're Roy's echo, kid." Lucas grinned, but his eyes were serious, carrying the fight's weight. Colonel Warren called with a lead. "Friend in D.C. says SkyCorp's grant is stalling. Your protest rattled them. Keep pushing." Ethan shared this with the coalition, who planned a second fly-in, this time near an FAA regional office. Tara, the crop duster, volunteered her steerman for flair. Mia, now a coalition favorite, would fly too. Ethan felt Roy in the momentum, defiance, unity, heart. The FAA hearing on the grant loomed. Ethan and Claire prepared, practicing his testimony. Diane Foster, the panel lead, had hinted at fairness, but SkyCorp's lawyer, Paul Vance, was a shark. At the hearing, Vance spun a tale of modernizing aviation, glossing over SkyCorp's predatory moves. Ethan countered, voice calm but firm, detailing how small schools trained pilots who served rural routes, jobs SkyCorp ignored. Mia spoke, her youth disarming the panel. "This school gave me wings. Don't let SkyCorp clip them." The room erupted in applause, even from some FAA staff. Margaret, in the audience, clutched Roy's photo, smiling. Back in Willow Creek, the coalition waited for news. Days later, Claire called, voice electric. The grant on hold. Foster's pushing for an audit of SkyCorp's practices. Ethan exhaled, relief flooding him. It wasn't a win yet, but it was close. That night, Ethan walked the airfield, Roy's flight wings in his pocket. Mia practiced night landings, her plane a speck against the stars. Lucas and Margaret planned a scholarship gala. SkyCorp was stumbling, but Ethan knew they'd regroup. He'd be ready, with Willow Creek, the coalition, and Roy's legacy behind him. The sky was theirs, and they'd fight to keep it. The FAA's decision to audit SkyCorp Aviation sent a jolt through the coalition. Ethan felt the first real spark of victory, but Claire Donovan tempered it. "An audit's not a death blow," she said, reviewing documents in Ethan's office. SkyCorp's got the cash to dodge accountability, lobbyists, lawyers, the works. Ethan nodded, familiar with the game. Roy had warned him about corporate giants, how they bent rules while small players bled. Ethan wasn't naive, he'd keep fighting. Willow Creek buzzed with renewed energy. The Roy Bennett Scholarship Gala, planned by Margaret and Lucas, packed the hangar with locals, pilots, and even a few reporters. Mia spoke, her voice steady, about how the school changed her life. "I'm 17 and I'm flying because of Ethan and Roy," she said, holding up her logbook. The crowd cheered and donations poured in $7,000 in one night. Margaret placed Roy's flight wings on display, a symbol of the fight. Ethan watched, throat tight, feeling Roy's presence. The coalition's second fly-in was a spectacle. 35 planes circling the FAA's regional office in Boise. Tara's Stearman led, trailing a Fair Sky banner. Mia flew a tight formation, her confidence shining. Lucas live-streamed the video, hitting 30,000 views. The FAA took notice, with Diane Foster emailing Claire. "Your message is clear. The audit's moving fast." Ethan sensed SkyCorp's grip slipping, but Paul Vance, their lawyer, was spotted meeting with FAA higher-ups, a sign they weren't done. Ellen Carter, the coalition's regulatory guru, found dirt. SkyCorp had misreported training hours to secure contracts, shortchanging students while charging premium rates. The coalition leaked this to the aviation blog, sparking outrage. Pilots flooded SkyCorp's social media with Fair Sky posts demanding transparency. Ethan marveled at the momentum. Willow Creek, once a small airfield, was now a symbol of resistance. Lucas, grinning, said, "Roy, probably laughing his ass off up there." Colonel Warren visited, bringing news. SkyCorp's losing allies. "My contact says the audit's uncovering fraud, big stuff." Ethan thanked him, but Warren's eyes were serious. "They'll lash out. Protect your school." Ethan doubled down, tightening compliance, training Lucas and Mia to spot issues. Margaret organized a community watch, locals volunteering to monitor the airfield for suspicious inspections. A week later, Claire got a bombshell. The FAA rejected SkyCorp's grant, citing concerns over competitive practices. The coalition celebrated, but Ethan stayed cautious. SkyCorp issued a statement claiming they reassess their approach, a corporate non-answer. Claire smirked. "They're rattled." Ethan nodded, but he knew they pivot, maybe target another region. The coalition agreed to keep the watchdog group active, guarding against the next threat. Ethan stood by the runway at dusk, watching Mia land flawlessly. Margaret joined him, Roy's photo in hand. "You kept his promise," she said. Ethan gripped the flight wings, nodding. SkyCorp was down, but the sky was unpredictable. Willow Creek, Roy's legacy, the coalition, they'd stand ready. Ethan looked up, feeling Roy's fire. The fight wasn't over, but they'd earned this moment. The FAA's rejection of SkyCorp's grant was a hard-won victory, but Ethan knew corporate giants didn't stay down long. Claire Donovan warned that SkyCorp was already pivoting, eyeing smaller grants and partnerships with regional airports. "They're like roaches," she said, flipping through FAA filings. "You squash one plan, they scuttle to another." Ethan nodded, his mind on Roy's stories of resilience, how he'd flown through storms, outsmarted bureaucracy, and kept his squadron tight. Ethan would do the same for Willow Creek. The coalition, now a force of 20 schools, tightened their watchdog efforts. Ellen Carter led a team analyzing SkyCorp's new moves, finding they'd hired a PR firm to clean up their image. Slick ads popped up online, touting community-focused training. But Ethan saw the truth. SkyCorp was poaching students with low introductory rates, planning to jack up prices later. He shared this with the coalition, who flooded aviation forums with warnings. Lucas amplified it, his Fair Sky posts hitting 50,000 views. Willow Creek's airfield thrived. The Roy Bennett Scholarship now funded 6 students, including Mia, who was prepping for her private pilot's check ride. Lucas took on assistant instructor duties, his confidence a mirror of Roy's younger days. Margaret's museum corner grew, with pilots donating old gear, goggles, charts, a faded logbook from Roy's Vietnam era. She'd sit there sometimes, reading Roy's notes, smiling at his scrawled jokes. Ethan felt her strength, a quiet anchor for the community. Colonel Warren called with a heads-up. SkyCorp's lobbying for a new FAA rule mandating corporate oversight for small schools. It's a backdoor takeover. Ethan's blood boiled. He rallied the coalition, drafting a petition with 1,000 signatures. Claire sent it to Diane Foster, who'd become a cautious ally. Foster replied, "We're watching SkyCorp closely. Keep us informed." Ethan sensed the FAA was tiring of corporate pressure, thanks to the coalition's noise. A new challenge hit. SkyCorp offered buyouts to 3 coalition schools, dangling big checks to join their network. 2 refused, but one, a struggling outfit in Oregon, took the deal. Ethan called their owner, a gruff pilot named Dan. "They'll gut you," Ethan warned. Dan sighed. "I'm drowning, Ethan, no choice." Ethan understood but felt the sting. SkyCorp was dividing them. The coalition regrouped, vowing to support at-risk schools with shared resources. The airfield hosted a community day, planes buzzing as kids ran around, faces painted with Fair Sky logos. Mia led a tour, her passion infectious. Lucas live-streamed, catching Margaret's speech. Roy fought for freedom. "We're fighting for our skis." Cheers echoed. Ethan watched, gripping Roy's flight wings. SkyCorp's shadow loomed, but Willow Creek was a fortress, community, grit, Roy's legacy. Claire got word the FAA was drafting rules to protect small schools, citing the coalition's pressure. It wasn't a full win, but it was close. Ethan stood by the runway, watching Lucas teach a kid to pre-flight. The fight wasn't over. SkyCorp would try again. But with Roy's spirit, the coalition's fire, and Willow Creek's heart, Ethan was ready. The sky belonged to them. Willow Creek's airfield felt like hallowed ground now, each takeoff a testament to their fight. Ethan walked the runway daily, Roy's flight wings in his pocket, grounding him as SkyCorp's shadow lingered. Claire Donovan's latest update was cautiously optimistic. The FAA's new rules, still in draft, favored small schools, requiring transparency from corporate operators. "Your coalition made this happen," she said. "But SkyCorp's got lawyers dissecting every line." Ethan nodded, knowing the war wasn't won. Roy had taught him to expect the long haul. The coalition, now 22 schools, was a force. Ellen Carter's team tracked SkyCorp's latest move, a partnership with a chain of regional airports, offering streamlined training that undercut local schools. Ethan saw it as another squeeze play dressed up as progress. He called a coalition meeting, proposing they pool resources for a shared marketing campaign, highlighting small schools' personal touch. SkyCorp can't match our heart, he said. The group agreed, and Lucas got to work, designing ads with Mia's solo flight as the centerpiece. Margaret's efforts kept the community tight. The Roy Bennett Scholarship now supported 8 students, and her museum corner drew visitors from across Idaho. A pilot from Boise donated a photo of Roy in Vietnam, arm around a young Travis Warren. Ethan showed it to Colonel Warren during his next visit. "Damn, we were kids," Warren said, voice thick. He shared more stories, Roy's quick thinking saving a mission, his refusal to bow to bad orders. "You're carrying his torch, Caldwell." The FAA finalized the new rules, a win for small schools. Diane Foster emailed Claire, "Your coalition's evidence was key, SkyCorp's on notice." Ethan exhaled, but Claire warned they'll pivot to state-level lobbying. Sure enough, SkyCorp pushed a bill in Idaho's legislature offering tax breaks for corporate training programs. Ethan rallied the coalition, meeting with state reps alongside Margaret and Mia. Mia's testimony, how Willow Creek gave her wings, swayed votes. The bill stalled. Lucas's social media kept the pressure on, Fair Sky now a national rallying cry. A viral post featured Margaret reading Roy's logbook, her voice steady. "He flew for freedom, we fly for him." It hit 100,000 views, drawing support from pilots in Canada and Europe. Ethan, still camera-shy, marveled at the reach. "Roy would have hated the fuss," he told Lucas, who laughed. "Yeah, but he'd love the fight." SkyCorp's partnership deals faltered as airports, spooked by bad press, backed out. The coalition celebrated, but Ethan stayed cautious. He tightened the school's operations, training Lucas and Mia to handle audits. Margaret planned a memorial fly-in for Roy's birthday, inviting the coalition. Planes filled the sky, banners waving. Ethan flew lead, feeling Roy's presence. SkyCorp was bruised, but they'd regroup. Willow Creek, the coalition, the community, they were stronger. Ethan gripped the yoke, Roy's wings in his pocket. The sky was theirs, and they'd keep it, no matter what came next. The FAA's new rules were a lifeline for small schools, but Ethan knew SkyCorp wouldn't stop. Claire Donovan tracked their latest move, a slick ad campaign claiming they empowered local pilots while quietly buying up hangar space at regional airports. "They're boxing us out," Claire said, showing Ethan leases SkyCorp had signed near 3 coalition schools. Ethan recognized the tactic, control the infrastructure, choke the competition. Roy had faced similar battles, outmaneuvering brass who favored bigger outfits. Ethan would do the same. The coalition, now 25 schools, fought back with a new strategy, partnerships with local businesses. Ethan pitched it to Willow Creek's town council, securing deals with the diner, a fuel supplier, and a mechanic shop to sponsor the airfield. Margaret led the charge, her charm winning over skeptics. "This is Roy's town," she told the council, holding up his flight log. "We keep it flying." The deals brought in $10,000, enough to upgrade a Cessna and fund the scholarship for another year. Lucas and Mia took the fight online, posting about SkyCorp's leases. Their video, showing empty hangars SkyCorp had locked up, went viral with Fair Sky, hitting 150,000 views. Pilots commented, sharing stories of SkyCorp's strong-arm tactics, pressuring airports to raise rents, forcing small schools out. A national aviation magazine picked it up, quoting Ethan, "We're not just fighting for our school. We're fighting for every kid who dreams of flying." He cringed at the attention but saw its power. Colonel Warren visited, bringing a contact, a retired FAA official named Linda Hayes who'd clashed with SkyCorp years ago. "They play dirty," Linda said, sipping coffee in the hangar. She offered to advise the coalition, pointing out loopholes in SkyCorp's leases. "Some violate FAA land use rules," she said. Claire jumped on it, filing complaints with the FAA and local airports. 2 leases were canceled, a small but real blow. The Roy Bennett Scholarship Gala became an annual event, drawing 300 people. Mia, now a licensed pilot, gave a speech, her voice steady. "This school gave me a future. SkyCorp wants to take that from others." The crowd roared and donations topped $12,000. Margaret displayed Roy's Vietnam photo, Travis Warren's arm around him, a reminder of their fight's roots. Ethan caught Warren's eye, nodding. They were brothers in this, tied by Roy. SkyCorp retaliated, lobbying for a state tax on small flight schools, claiming it would fund safety. Ethan and Claire met with lawmakers, backed by the coalition's petition, 2,000 signatures strong. Mia testified, her youth disarming skeptics. The tax proposal died in committee. Ethan exhaled, feeling Roy's fire. SkyCorp was stumbling, but they'd pivot again. At dusk, Ethan stood by the runway, watching Lucas teach a new student. Margaret joined him, Roy's flight wings now framed in the museum corner. "You're keeping his promise," she said. Ethan nodded, gripping the yoke in his mind. SkyCorp was a giant, but Willow Creek was tougher, forged by community, grit, and Roy's legacy. The sky was theirs, and Ethan would fight to keep it free. SkyCorp's stumble didn't dull their ambition. Claire Donovan uncovered their latest play, a bid to monopolize flight instructor certifications through a proprietary program, pitching it to the FAA as a safety standard. Ethan saw it for what it was, a gatekeeping move to control who could teach, pricing out independence like his school. Roy had railed against such tactics, once dodging a military rule that favored connected contractors. Ethan felt that defiance now, fueling his resolve. The coalition, now 28 schools, met virtually to strategize. Ellen Carter, their regulatory expert, flagged SkyCorp's program as a violation of FAA fairness principles. "They're trying to own the pipeline," she said. Ethan proposed a counter-certification program run by the coalition, emphasizing hands-on training. Claire drafted a proposal, citing Willow Creek's success with students like Mia. They sent it to Diane Foster at the FAA, backed by 3,000 signatures from pilots and locals. Lucas and Mia kept the Fair Sky campaign alive. Mia posted a video of her check ride, landing smoothly as Lucas narrated. "This is what small schools do, build pilots, not profits." It hit 200,000 views with comments from pilots worldwide. A European flight school reached out, facing similar corporate pressure, and joined the coalition. Ethan marveled at the reach. Roy's legacy was crossing borders. Margaret expanded the airfield's community role, hosting STEM workshops for kids, using flight simulators to spark interest. The Roy Bennett Scholarship now funded 10 students, and the museum corner drew tourists, boosting the diner's business. A visitor left a note. "Roy's story inspires us all." Margaret read it to Ethan, her eyes misty. "He's still flying," she said. Ethan nodded, feeling Roy in every takeoff. Colonel Warren brought news. The FAA was reviewing SkyCorp's certification program, skeptical of its exclusivity. "Your proposal's getting traction," he told Ethan. "Foster likes it." But SkyCorp doubled down, releasing ads claiming their program saved lives. Claire found data disproving it. SkyCorp's trainees had higher incident rates than small school pilots. The coalition leaked this to the Aviation magazine, sparking a PR nightmare for SkyCorp. A new threat emerged. SkyCorp offered buyouts to 2 more coalition schools, dangling millions. Both refused, citing Willow Creek's fight. Ethan called their owners, offering support, shared mechanics, joint classes. "We're stronger together," he said, echoing Roy's squadron days. The coalition planned a third fly-in, this time over SkyCorp's headquarters, 40 planes strong. Mia and Lucas led, banners waving. The live stream hit 300,000 views, Fair Sky a rallying cry. The FAA rejected SkyCorp's program, citing the coalition's alternative as more equitable. Ethan exhaled, but Claire warned, "They'll try something else, maybe international markets." Ethan nodded, ready. That night he watched Mia teach a kid to pre-flight, Lucas joking nearby. Margaret stood by Roy's museum, smiling. SkyCorp was relentless, but Willow Creek was unbreakable, forged by community, Roy's fire, and a promise kept. Ethan gripped the flight wings, eyes on the sky. The fight went on, but they'd earned this ground and they'd hold it. The FAA's rejection of SkyCorp's certification program was a blow to their empire, but Ethan stayed on edge. Claire Donovan's latest intel showed SkyCorp shifting to international markets, targeting small flight schools in Canada and Australia with buyout offers. "They're spreading the same playbook," she told Ethan, her laptop open to emails from foreign pilots. "We need to go global." Ethan agreed, seeing Roy's defiance in the fight. Never let the big dogs win. The coalition, now 30 schools, reached out to international allies. A Canadian school in Alberta joined, sharing stories of SkyCorp's aggressive leases. Ellen Carter led a task force, drafting a global charter for independent flight schools, emphasizing fair competition and community roots. Ethan pitched it at a virtual summit, his voice steady over shaky Wi-Fi. "We're not just schools," he said, holding up Roy's flight wings. "We're where pilots are born." The summit voted to adopt the charter, with 15 countries signing on. Lucas and Mia kept Fair Sky trending, posting a video of Willow Creek students, kids from farm families, chasing dreams in Cessnas. It hit 500,000 views, with comments from pilots in Japan and Brazil. Mia, now a certified pilot, became the coalition's face, her youth and grit resonating. Lucas interviewed her for a podcast, her story of soloing at 17 inspiring thousands. Ethan watched, proud but humbled. Roy's legacy was bigger than he'd imagined. Margaret's airfield events grew, the Roy Bennett Scholarship now funding 12 students. The museum corner became a pilgrimage site, with pilots leaving tokens, dog tags, patches, letters. A Vietnam vet donated a photo of Roy mid-flight, grinning in a cockpit. Margaret framed it, her hands trembling. "He's still with us," she told Ethan. He nodded, feeling Roy in the hangar's hum, the community's heartbeat. Colonel Warren brought a new ally, a D.C. lobbyist, Corinne Mills, who'd worked with Roy decades ago. "SkyCorp's losing ground," she said, sipping coffee in the hangar. "Your charter's rattling them." She offered to push it in D.C., targeting FAA reforms. Claire jumped in, drafting policy briefs with Ellen. The FAA responded, inviting Ethan to a regulatory panel. He testified, citing Willow Creek's fight, Mia's success, Roy's memory. Diane Foster nodded, impressed. SkyCorp retaliated, spreading rumors of unsafe small schools. Claire debunked them with data, showing coalition schools had fewer incidents than SkyCorp's. The Aviation magazine ran the story, tanking SkyCorp stock. Lucas's live stream of a coalition fly-in, 50 planes over Boise, hit 1 million views. Mia led, her Piper steady, Fair Sky banners waving. Ethan stood by the runway at dusk, watching Lucas teach a new student. Margaret joined, Roy's photo in hand. "You built something big," she said. Ethan gripped the flight wings, nodding. SkyCorp was wounded, but they'd strike again, maybe overseas, maybe subtler. Willow Creek, the coalition, the global charter, they were ready. Roy's fire burned in every flight, every student, every fight. The sky was theirs, and Ethan would keep it free, no matter the cost. SkyCorp's retreat to international markets didn't surprise Ethan. Claire Donovan's network of pilots confirmed they were targeting small schools in Canada, Australia, and even South Africa, offering buyouts or partnerships that locked schools into their system. "It's Larson's playbook, scaled up," Claire said, showing Ethan a contract SkyCorp sent to a Vancouver school, promising funds but demanding control. Ethan saw Roy's old enemy in it, power dressed as progress. The coalition's global charter gained traction, with 20 countries now signed on. Ellen Carter led webinars teaching small schools how to resist corporate takeovers. Ethan joined, sharing Willow Creek's story, Roy's tribute, the FAA Fight the Fly-ins. A school in Queensland, Australia, credited the charter with blocking a SkyCorp deal. "You're saving us," their owner wrote. Ethan, uncomfortable with praise, passed it to Margaret. "It's Roy," he said. She smiled, placing a new photo in the museum corner, Roy and Warren, laughing in Vietnam.